What is up, all of you beautiful nerds from around the world? I am, of course, Josh. This is the Den of Nerds, and in this Fan Chat Live, we are going to discuss all about Game of Thrones Season 8, the finale to that show, the end of the show, the end of an era. I want to talk about it. I'm sure we all have feelings. I've got feelings, man. I got feelings, that's for sure. Want to talk about that? Want to talk about if the show was rushed for the sake of Star Wars. It's a big discussion that a lot of people are talking about out there. I am conflicted. I sense a lot of conflict in you, young Skywalker. I don't know how I feel about them possibly doing this, rushing this for the sake of Star Wars. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to think. So, as you guys are coming into the chat, please let me know, what did you think? What did you think of the Game of Thrones finale? What did you think of the ending? And spoilers, I should say, for people that are coming in here. We're going to be talking all about these juicy spoilers. And, of course, answering questions, speculating about things. So I've been talking to a lot of different people about the show, about the finale, and about this season in general. The consensus out there among a lot of different people is that this season was rushed. Okay. Obviously, this is a 6-episode season. A lot of people are used to the show doing much longer seasons, 10 episodes, different things like that. Okay. So what's going on here? Like, why was this exactly rushed? Some people are saying that it was Dan and Dave and that they were offered to do 10 episodes. They were even offered more money by HBO. Okay. And that is that they decided not to take it. There are other people out there that are saying this was a decision by HBO and that HBO wanted to get out of there. Do you know what I mean? So it's tough out there. I have heard a lot of different things. My consensus is that something is going on behind the scenes, or something did go on behind the scenes that we are just simply not aware of. Okay. And I've been talking about this quite a bit with a lot of different people. What's up, everybody that's in chat? I think something weird's going on. I don't think that notifications went out for this live stream. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe people will come in a little bit later. But usually we see a much bigger spike than this. But in any case, we'll go on here. Let us know what you're thinking about the episode as you come into the chat. Now, I'm going to get kind of ranty here, guys. I got to be honest. I've been thinking a lot about what went down in the final episode. And, yeah. Oh, you just got the notification? Okay, maybe they're rolling out. Maybe they're rolling out later. So there's a lot of people that are blaming Dan and Dave heavily for this, right? They're saying that this is their fault. I do not know if that is exactly the case. Okay? And the more I'm thinking about it, and this is something that I've talked with several people about, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I think about, when was it decided? When did they know, all parties involved, that George was not going to finish these books? Now, there's a lot of mystery about what is going on, what went on behind the scenes, but there were reports out there that when Dan and Dave signed on to do this project, to develop this show, that it was in the contract that they would that George would finish the books, essentially, that they would be adapting the books. They would sort of wait until the books were done and then that. And I don't know if that's true, but if it is true, then George, by not finishing his books, put them in an awkward situation. And I think he put HBO in an awkward situation. And around that time, when it was basically known that he was not going to finish these books, they all sat down and had a meeting, and George explained the basic outline for everything that was going to happen at the end of Game of Thrones. Do you guys remember hearing about this? This was a thing that happened. They definitely had this kind of a meeting, and George told them the ending of the series and all of the different beats. Do you guys remember that? So what I'm saying to you, and what I've said in the different shows and everything like that, is that this is the ending that George told them. Like, all of it. King Bran, Mad Queen, Jon takes the black, Sam's writing A Song of Ice and Fire, Tyrion's the Hand, all of it. All of it's George's ending. And I got to be honest. I'm just going to be honest, and I'll tell you from my perspective, I think this ending sucks. It just straight up sucks. And there's no way, well, in my opinion, I should say, there's no way that even better writing, more build up, more explanation, more things like that, I don't think anything is going to change. And what I mean to tell you guys is I can imagine a scenario in which Dan and Dave take this meeting with George, and George explains to them how he wants to end this story, and they literally go back to their hotel room after this meeting, and they're like, do you hate it? Because I hate it. Everyone's gonna hate it. There's no way nobody's not gonna hate this ending. And I'm thinking in my head that perhaps that had something to do with the fact that they only wanted to do 6 episodes. You can call me crazy, but I'm starting to believe that. Could we entertain the idea that George R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire sucks? Could we entertain that idea? Because if this is the way that it's going to end in the books, I still feel like that sucks. I feel like it's a terrible ending. So at the end of the day, man, I don't know if I can put all of the blame on Dan and Dave. And I'll tell you this too. I think something eventually will come out because it just simply doesn't make sense that they ran away from more money, Dan and Dave. They ran away from more money, job security. Just they said no to all of that stuff and just wanted to finish it. There has to be something going on there. There has to be some kind of bad blood. Now, I think that they all had to sort of play nice because at the end of the day, guys, what happened with Thrones? What happened with Thrones was a phenomenon. That's not supposed to happen. The show producers did not think it was going to be that big. George did not think it was going to be that big. No, HBO did not think the show was going to be that big. When you create the most popular show on the planet, and you're in the situation that they were in, there's some weird stuff that goes on. And I want to know. I'd love to be in the rooms of those meetings. And I think years and years and years from now, we will get the full story. Because right now, Dan and Dave, they want the Star Wars thing bad. And they're going to play nice. They're going to say what they need to say. They're going to act professional about this stuff. They are not going to come out and say what's actually going on because, that's not what you do. You don't air the dirty laundry of the studio or anything like that, okay? So what I'm saying to you is I think something went on behind the scenes around the time that George realized he wasn't going to finish the books. And it could be HBO. Could be HBO that was the problem. That was like, hey, look, Dan and Dave, you're contracted to do this. Even though it says this about the books or whatever, we don't care. You have to finish this show. And you can't take too long because we need keep this thing going, right? So it could be the Suits, right? It could be the overlords, and they're like, hey, money talks, baby, money talks. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Could be George. George could be like, well, I want all this money. I want all this stuff. If I finish the books and everyone realizes that my story sucks, nobody's going to care about the show anymore. I would really like all of those millions of dollars. Let's just keep going with that. That could be, man. George could have done it. Could be Dan and Dave. Could be Dan and Dave saying, whether or not they're sick of it or some bad blood happened or they just hate the ending or whatever. They're like, well, screw that. You know what I mean? So something was going on there that's really, really weird. Okay? Now, that's a lot of speculation, of course. But guys, I told you I was going to get a little ranty. I don't know how else to say it. It's a mess. It's a mess of a situation. Now, Bran, let's talk about Bran, King Bran for just a second. Let's talk about King Bran, and then we'll get into the Star Wars of this all. Because the real question is, did they rush this for Star Wars? If they did, should we be pissed about this? Do they deserve Star Wars? Should they even do their Star Wars thing now, right? So we'll get into that in just a second. But we got to talk King Bran. King Bran makes no sense whatsoever. Makes zero sense. I had heard the leaks that they were going to put Bran on the Iron Throne. I heard these leaks weeks ago, and I was like, that would be terrible. There's no way that leak's true. That's got to be a troll, is what I said. I was like, nah, that's got to be trolling by some people. There's no way they would put Bran who misses an entire season, Bran who's like so whacked out. He's like a vegetable. You know what I mean? Bran, the Broken, becomes the king of Westeros. Man, I did not need it to be John. I did not need it to be Danny. I didn't need it to be anybody. I mean, honestly, I don't. I just think that they picked just the worst possible character to do that. The guy literally says episodes ago that he can't be the Lord of Winterfell. The line that he gives back to Tyrion after Tyrion asks, "Would you? I ask you now, would you do it?" And he says, "Why do you think I came down all this way?" That is the single most uncharacteristic line of dialogue I think I've ever heard from a character. That was that was some whack shit, dude. That was awful. That was bad. I was like, okay. So they did that. It just feels so like I don't even know how to explain it. I mean, like in the one sense, the one redeeming quality of that as an ending is that it really opens it up to Bran being completely sinister, and being perhaps worse than all of them. You know what I mean? If he has all these omnipotent powers, if he really if he coordinated this whole thing, if he made this all happen, then he's evil. You know what I mean? Like there's just no way around it. Like he's just an evil son of a bitch. And the world, I assume, would be far worse off for it, him being in charge of things. You know what I mean? Like I know a lot of people would make the argument. They're like making this. I saw people online talking about this where they're like, well, I think he would actually be the best, and because he's so impartial and he's so wise, for once, we'll actually have a wise ruler, and that'll be great. Dude, no. Dude, what? Ugh, yeah, King Bran is the stupidest thing that they could have done, and I can't believe they did it. And the way that Tyrion, the whole scene is just awful. Honestly, that scene is awful. The way they shot it, the way it was acted out. Tyrion and Peter Dinklage does his best to sort of save that scene, but he essentially gets on a soapbox and sort of they do this like play, and it's like, thank you, Mo Childs, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the super chat too. It was almost like a play where he gets up there and he's like, "This is the comedy of Westeros, and now a Brandon Stark should lead us all." And I'm just like, dude, what? Oh my god, I couldn't believe it. I can't stand it. Can't stand it. Now let's get into talk about Star Wars. So, can these guys do Star Wars? Should these guys do Star Wars? I think it's really important to note, and this is what I've been telling a lot of people. We're getting into Q&A a little bit here, guys, because I really want to know what you guys are thinking and go over some of the stuff, some of the questions that you have. Okay. Dan and Dave are not just writers, but they're producers on the show. And they have done something pretty freaking incredible with this show. It's the most popular show of all time. Aesthetically, it's absolutely incredible. It's taken it's sort of a mid it's sort of fantasy. I mean, it is kind of fantasy, but it's not like high fantasy. But they've made that like a really staying power genre. And swords, armor, politics, banners, those sort of things are incredibly popular now because of the show. And Dan and Dave are mostly responsible for that. You know what I mean? And the team of directors, the teams of people that they've put together, those would be the people that would be helping them with Star Wars. So the way this usually works is they'll now go away and they'll work on these scripts, and they'll work with people at Lucasfilm with these scripts. And when the scripts are satisfactory to Lucasfilm, they'll start production. Now, when they start production, everything from getting the shooting schedule to finding locations to getting actors to getting extras to figuring out costume design, all of that stuff would likely run through the production teams that Dan and Dave select. That's what producing means. And they will use a lot of the people that they used with Game of Thrones. The prequel series for Game of Thrones will be like a whole new team. All new people, totally a new team. HBO, people from HBO will be there. There'll probably be a lot of people that work with Dan and Dave that'll be there too, but a totally new thing, right? And so the question is, man, and I think this is really the big question now. After The Last Jedi, which subverted our expectations in such a way that it sort of turned people off and like broke the fan base in a lot of different ways. Does Star Wars really need to take these two guys that just directed some of the most controversial television that I don't quite know if it's the same level of Last Jedi stuff yet? Like, it's hard to say how broken the Game of Thrones fan base is. You'll have to see, man, how these, I think the books will still sell well. How's the new show going to do? You know what I mean? How's merchandising now? It's hard to say, right? It's really hard to say. So if this fan base is broken in the same way that Star Wars is it a good PR move to bring them over to do Star Wars yet again? And I would say to you, even though I still have a really bad taste in my mouth, that I still do want to see them do Star Wars. And I'm actually, maybe when I get over the episode, the finale, I'm actually not even that upset if they rushed this out to get to Star Wars. And if I were them, during a meeting with like Kathy or Bob Iger or whoever over there, I would have literally said like, look, guys, just to warn you, nobody's going to like how Game of Thrones ends, which kind of is very Game of Thrones, right? I totally get it. But I would make that known. I'd be like, yo, nobody's going to like the end of this show, just so you know, which is potentially why it was announced that they would take over before a lot of the season aired, right? So sort of resting on their laurels a little bit, perhaps just letting the PR just separate itself so that people don't just get super pissed all across the board. But in general, guys, I'm actually still excited to see what they do with Star Wars. I really and truly am, because, again, I think that's George's ending. I think that they adapted it in the best way that they could, and I think that they're very good adapters, and if they take some of the stuff that's in Legends now, some of the EU stuff, they work closely with Dave Filoni, because I'm telling you right now, guys, they're going to be working closely with Dave Filoni. You're going to start to see all the casual Star Wars people are going to start to see why Dave Filoni is being positioned for a much bigger role at Lucasfilm and why that's going to be really good for the brand. But just in general, I'm very excited to see them tackle Star Wars. So even if they did rush Game of Thrones for Star Wars, even though I'm really salty about the last episode, just King Bran is ridiculous, I could probably get over it eventually. And I could probably get over them rushing Game of Thrones to get to Star Wars, because I'm a frankly much bigger Star Wars fan than I am Game of Thrones fan, especially now. So let's get into Q&A. Guys, feel free to drop your questions into the chat if you got a super chat, like my good friend Aaron H. over here. It really does help me out. It helps the channel out. I will answer every single super chat that comes in. We'll probably go for like 30, 40 minutes from here, guys. So get those questions in. If you don't have any loot, don't even worry about it. Just drop a question in. I'll try to get to as many non-super chat questions as well. Aaron H., are there any Bran fans? Wish he died in season 6. There might be Bran fans. I know there's been a lot of different theories about Bran, and if Bran was the Night King, that would have been pretty cool, right? That would have been very interesting, and it's possibly cool that he sort of villained this whole thing up, but even that just feels like such a out of left field, like, what? And then you think about that forever. There's no... I just really don't like it. I really don't like it. I liked Bran before he turned into a turnip. Yeah, I can agree with that. I'm more of a fan of what Bran could have been than what he was. Same with Littlefinger. 100% agree with you, Joshua Sanders. Especially Littlefinger, man. The whole his what was it, the Dornish plan or whatever, where he was trying to bankrupt the Iron Throne. And yeah, like Peter Baelish has way better stuff going on in the books, from what I understand. Because I'm not a book reader, but like I keep up on the differences and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, that sounds really cool. Should have done that. So yeah, um, totally tough. And Bran could have been way cooler too. And it's just such a leap. I mean, if people thought that Daenerys going mad was like too drastic, Bran saying, "Why do you think I came all the way down here and becoming king?" That's not drastic. That's like ridiculous, dude. It's ridiculous. If it's let me see here. If it's George R. R. Martin's writing, then they are in the clear, and they should be clear to do Star Wars. Cool's not cool. 99 says. Yeah. Here's the thing. I think we're gonna get those answers maybe sooner rather than later. Next week is the big like documentary type thing that they're doing on HBO, and I think they're gonna come right out and say. I think I think they're literally gonna talk about that meeting they had 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and I think they're literally gonna talk about how this is George's ending. These are the broad strokes, and we had to get there, and blah blah blah. Now they're still gonna be good little boys. They're not gonna say how they really feel about it or why they're leaving so quickly. Because you gotta be good. You gotta be a good boy. You gotta be good for the PR and all that. But yeah, I totally agree with that sentiment. Do you think that with more clear writing, Bran's change of heart could have been exposed? Have you heard of the Three-Eyed Raven's history of ruling the Seven Kingdoms? Joshua Saunders. I have not. I've not heard of that. Um, his change of heart could have been exposed, perhaps. I'm sure it'll be handled better in the books. Still not sure if that's a good ending. Still not sure. I believe the Force should be mystic and rare, such as in Rogue One. Luke could barely move a lightsaber halfway through his trilogy. Do you believe the Force should be rare and mystic? I think you can do both. I don't think that's what's going to be happening in the Old Republic series, though. So if you're thinking that's what's going to go on, probably not. However, they could take Force users or the Jedi back a little bit, power them down. We don't need like 10,000 rays. Like we can have a little bit more powered down Jedi, and I think that would be help to make things a little bit more interesting. Plus, the thing about the Old Republic time is that there's a lot of Sith and a lot of Dark Jedi, and there's a lot of craziness going on. And so even then, I don't think the Jedi were as OP comparatively to not only the Sith but to other people that are around. Yeah, Brian Ramsey. Please comment on Bran's ability to use warging, etc., as king. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I feel like it's unjust. So here's the thing: George is trying to make a statement about nuclear weapons, but frickin' Bran is like the NSA. Bran knows everybody's secrets. Bran has seen like everything. I do not think that a guy like that should be king. And all the abilities and all the power that he has, right? And the whole idea is like, oh no, he's a good person. Dude, what is the lesson of Danny? The lesson of Danny is even good people can be corrupted and do terrible things. Do not give a single person that much power. If the dragons represent power that is not good, then so does Bran's power. That is the same thing, if not worse. It's terrible. It's terrible. Uncle Benjamin. Bran knew about Danny and did nothing. Dude, for sure. And he knew that he knew about all of it. The only person that really got hooked up was Jon, I guess you could say, because Jon always wanted to just be alone, or not alone, but like he didn't want to be king. He didn't want to deal with all that crap. Him just being up north with the wildlings, him and Tormund and freaking Ghost. Hell yeah. I mean, good for him. I believe the Night King is the one who is king. Huh? I don't know how that would work. I don't know how that would work. Yeah. What an ending indeed. So yeah, the script writing was sabotaged. Let me go on another little train of thought here, guys. This is something I've been talking to friends about. Let me see if you guys how you feel about this. So George has said that he is a gardener. Now this is in the meaning in the sense that there's a difference between two kinds of basic writers: a gardener and an architect. An architect is someone that plots out everything, that knows where everything's going, and sort of just places it together. They sort of outline first, then they do a draft. Gardeners tend to use their first draft as their outline, and they sort of let things happen organically. Now, both sides of that coin use the other skill set. So architects do some gardening, gardeners do some architects, right? So George is a gardener. But I can't help but think that back then, when maybe it was HBO or something, like, did HBO demand an ending from him in order to, like, do their thing? And then did he, like, have to come up with an ending and, like, sort of architect that thing? And, like, because he's not like that, it sucks. Also, traditionally, writers that are architects, they can't close. All of their endings are pretty bad. A lot of Stephen King's endings are pretty bad. This ending's bad, dude. Like, no way around it. Like, for me, in my opinion. So, we say all these things about, again, about Dan and Dave. I would love to know the real story. And I'm telling you, too, mark my words, guys. A lot of the anger that is directed at Dan and Dave right now is going to be moving to Sir George R.R. Martin very soon. Very soon. Possibly deservingly so. Wasn't the decision to end Game of Thrones this season made before D&D were selected for a Star Wars trilogy? Well, it's hard to say. It was definitely decided before it was officially announced. But meetings and stuff and the way all that works, it's hard to say, my friend. Paige Roberts, I was so sad about Danny's arc. Yeah, it's pretty tough. Pretty tough for Danny. They made her full on psycho. So one of the things that I was interested in was how are they going to handle Danny in this last episode, because she just did this crazy thing. Is there going to be remorse? Is she going to realize what she did? Could she? And the fact that the way they went with it, I was like, oh, okay, wow, she's really drinking the crazy Kool-Aid. She's all the way gone, man. It would have been better almost if she was like, she broke down and like was like, John, I'm so sorry. Like, I need your help. Like, this was bad and all this stuff. And then he's like, yeah, but you still got to go, bitch. But man, she's insane. Also, you know what's really interesting too? How much did Dothraki sound like High German? That speech she was giving, that was pretty Hitler. You know what I mean? Yeah. But see, this isn't one of those kind of stories. You know what I mean? And one of the things is, it's like, maybe we all are just coming to the terms with the fact that, like, George, and this is something I've said to a lot of different people, George is just a little perverted dude that loves fantasy. He's just a fantasy perv, dude. I'd love to play Dungeons and Dragons with this guy. I'd love to hang out with this guy. You know what I mean? And he wrote this story. He wrote his story. He wrote his version of fantasy. It's it's intriguing. But maybe we, and by we I mean, the sort of like the world, pop cultures or whatever. Maybe we made it into something that it wasn't. And now we're all like, upset that it wasn't what we thought it was. But that veneer was created by us. It's never supposed to be that thing. You know what I mean? And maybe it's always meant to be like, oh, yeah, Game of Thrones. Oh, I've read it. Icky, icky, icky. Ooh, I've read that. Ah, icky, icky, icky. Aaron H. So I guess the Dothraki weren't mad Jon killed Dany. So I think they are probably a little bit mad. But again, in Dothraki culture, I think that if you get killed and you're the call or the cow, whatever that was called, you're weak. You weak, man. So in some ways, it's like, yeah, no, Dany's dead, but she's dead because she wasn't strong enough. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Yova in the building. Yova believes that, yes, they did rush Game of Thrones because of Star Wars. And Yova, let me ask you, how do you feel about that as a big Star Wars fan? Don't you dare blame George R. R. Martin for this. It was all D&D. John, I've just literally explained that I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that it's at least equal parts to blame probably for both of them. And HBO probably has some blame in this too. But I think this is George's ending. Where did all the Dothraki and Unsullied come from? I mean, that's one of the things that's kind of interesting about the show. I mean, the thing is, so the show became this thing kind of where what's needed to make it make sense exposition wise, like that's just what they do. So they just explain it. And here, let me give a fair shake to King Bran. Because there is actually a way in which King Bran makes a lot of sense. The problem is they don't execute it this way. They don't execute the scene this way. But here's the thing. The reason that they select Bran at the council is because they realize that every single other name that they put forward, something like a Jon Snow, maybe Grey Worm, you know what I mean? Like any of these names will cause conflict, aggression, and probably war. And so the reason that they end up going with Bran is because he's like the safe play. Like Bran does not have a political leaning. Like he can't be corrupted. He can't be corrupted by another person's agenda. I would argue that he could absolutely be corrupted. Um, but I can see how that scene specifically, if they had talked more about that, if they had emphasized how the different people that they're putting forward would cause a war, and then they're like, you know what we need to do here? Something crazy. We need to let the dude in the wheelchair over there run things. Do you know what I mean? That would have made more sense, and that's kind of a possible explanation for King Bran. But it still sucks. How would you like to have seen the last episode go? Cam Peck asks. Well, I actually had an ending that was way more tragic than what happened, at least in the sense of what happened with Danny and John. So imagine very similar to what happened in this episode, but then Danny tells John that she's pregnant with his child. And then John would like kill himself. And I honestly don't know why John didn't kill himself. I don't understand. Is it just his honor or whatever? That should have been on the table. Like, you know what I mean? That should have been on the table. He's expecting Drogon to kill him, then Drogon doesn't. He should have like maybe jumped out the window or like thought about it, thought about running himself through. Um, that would have been a good ending for me. Now, as far as who sits on the Iron Throne, then I mean, like honestly, I feel like it probably should have been Sansa. Like just from my perspective, she's a way better choice than Bran, like a million times better. Obviously, Jon Snow being king, I think, would be great, particularly because he doesn't want to be king. And, you know, if we're making weird ass arguments that, like, for instance, Tyrion being the hand is punishment because the rest of his life he has to be good, then what a better punishment than the weight of a crown that you do not want and the unbreakable honor that you have to do the right thing for the seven kingdoms? Could have been John. So those are two better options than Bran. Almost anybody other than Bran would have made more sense. Yeah, they didn't even consider John, which is hilarious because why did Varys send all of those things out? They don't even mention his real birth. Like, come on. They don't even mention it. January 4th, 2018. And when did the announcement come out for the Star Wars thing, Brian? Why is there still a Night's Watch? Well, they explained that, man, with exposition. Because you always need a place for broken men and bastards, I guess. Yes, it was rushed because of Star Wars. And are you mad? I guess we'll have to wait and see how badass their Star Wars is going to be, right? Because let's be real, guys. Like, I'm pretty salty right now. I'm pretty mad. But I'm way more of a Star Wars fan. And as soon as I see that first Old Republic trailer, I might be like, game of what? Bran who? I don't care. I don't care about that. John Rain asks, does anyone know where D&D are getting the material for the Star Wars projects? None of that's been revealed yet. We would assume that they would look at a lot of Legends stuff and pull from it. And they're going to come up with their own story. Like, they'll come up with it and pitch it. Now, I think they're going to meet with the story group and particularly with Dave Filoni heavily just to get an idea of what Disney wants in that era. So Disney, if they're smart, and please Disney be smart with what you're doing here, you have a golden opportunity to do something really, really cool. If they're smart, they will plan the broad strokes of what this time period will be like. And this includes what they want to do from a marketing perspective, from a branding perspective, from a merchandising perspective, from a storytelling perspective, the novels, comic books, movies, TV shows. It's going to have to hopefully tie into what they're doing in Galaxy's Edge. You know, they should do it the right way, the way that they promised they would do this saga, where everything ties together, everything's canon. We'll probably get video games set in that time period. A lot of cool stuff. So, what we know very little about what stories they'll be adapting. They'll probably write something that they like using some characters that we have met before in Legends. Oh yeah, no, I'm excited for Watchmen. I don't know if I'll do too much content about it. Just we'll have to see how popular it is. If it's popping and people watch the videos, 'cause the thing about it is it's kind of weird. Like YouTube's just kind of weird. Even our Game of Thrones videos over here usually don't do very well. So I haven't really covered that much Thrones because we're mostly Marvel channel. You know what I mean? Like most of our stuff's Marvel, but Thrones is obviously the biggest show of all time. So I figured we would do this chat and do the video and everything. The first one was January, and then the came out February. Yeah. So my the odds are, Brian, that they knew about Star Wars. They knew about all that. Which Game of Thrones prequel do you want to see? I want to see High Valyria. Maybe what happened at the Doom. Maybe before the Doom. High Valyria would be really, really cool. Maybe a Dance with Dragons. Maybe the Black Fire Rebellion. Um, yeah, that kind of stuff would be cool. Maybe the First Long Night or something like that. Yeah, Jason, that's a good point. HBO likes to set us up. Look at all their other great shows, the way they've ended, like Sopranos, The Wire, True Blood, Deadwood, and Westworld. Yeah, could be. Like I said, it's really hard. It's hard to nail an ending, particularly like if from a gardening perspective, if you're just putting stuff together and naturally following where things go, you don't actually tend to get to a nice thing that pays off. So you have to sort of establish those things and then sort of work around those things. The problem with the show is they went from being really, really loose to being like, oh my God, we have to start working on these beats. We have to get there here. We have to sort of shift our focus. And it really just showed. And Arya's arc is awful. Her arc overall in the show. Now, I still like the Arya character. And, I have my reasons. But that arc is terrible. Season 5 just was painful. And they've used her in such a weird, contrived way. And it's so obvious that they were like, okay, we're going to have to start building Ninja Arya now because she's going to take out the Night King. So let's get to work on Ninja Arya. And then they deconstructed Ninja Arya. And it's just like, that's bad writing. I don't like it. I'm wondering too about these prequels. I really am. I'm really curious. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about the fact that like it's a good thing that it's not Dan and Dave, and they're like excited to see it and like check it out and all that. Man, I'm really interested because at this point it's like, okay, what are they going to do from a branding perspective? Is it the Game of Thrones world without the Game of Thrones spice, or is it both? And if it is both, do we care anymore? Because is it going to be like, twist for the sake of twists? Subverting expectations for the sake of subverting expectations? Because that's kind of what the whole show kind of feels like now, right? We shall see. We shall see. So I'll probably go for like 10 more minutes, guys. Get your questions in here. And thanks for hanging out, man. I know it's a Monday night stream about the thrones and the Star Wars. Yeah, John, that Arya Wave stuff was nuts. Thoughts on his Dark Materials? It looks cool. I like the trailer. I will definitely check it out. I will give it a shot. My favorite show on television right now is Legion. And the final season of that should be dropping very soon. Brian Miller coming in hot with the super chat. I still feel good about D&D's Star Wars trilogy. They directed George R.R. Martin's story and fit it in within HBO's timeline. They think they'll work with Rian Johnson. That's hard to say. I think that they will have meetings with Rian Johnson. It's hard to say why. I don't know. It almost feels like, and I've seen a lot of different people talk about this, it almost feels like they're like trying to keep Ryan involved, but like not. I don't know. Ryan still hasn't commented on the Star Wars trilogy and his trilogy and he hasn't commented on it, as far as I know, any of that on Twitter. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't hate if Ryan did one of the movies, if he directed one of the movies, but I know a lot of people would. You know what I mean? A lot of people would. I tell you, the memes would be great. Just of how many expectations are going to be subverting, or you know what I mean? Like just throwing all those guys together. The memes would be great. Coolest, not cool 99. Do you think George R.R. Martin purposely wrote ending this way just to show us who's in charge and that he holds the power, not the rest of us? I think George is just writing the way George writes. The way George writes is like, it's not amoral, but it's like, look, there's no such thing as a fully good or a fully bad person. At the end of the day, especially when it comes to people of power, and it's the little guy that suffers, and it's the rich and powerful that make the decisions, and it just is what it is. Like he's writing just his postmodern, tragic, nihilistic version of fantasy. Oh how freaking cool and interesting it is. Let's deconstruct it all. Let's make it postmodern. Nothing really matters. Nobody's really good. Let's show the world what it really is. I'm so tired of it. Which is why, like, in a lot of ways, why Marvel, I think, succeeds. There's some deconstructionism in Marvel, but overall, it's like heroic, right? You put the toys back on the shelf the way they were. Yeah, I think Drogon melting the throne is a George thing as well. Can we count up all the George things in this finale? Because there's a lot of them. What is dead may never die. Yeah, this is this has been a tough one, dude. I'm about to go watch the episode again. Maybe I can't decide. I might watch it again, or I might go watch John Wick. Oh my God, John! Of course. The thing about Endgame is we should be very grateful. It's obvious that these are not easy things to pull off. It's not easy to navigate through a fandom to do crazy things. And Endgame has a lot of different holes and things that people don't like about it as well. But it didn't break the fan base, and it's overwhelmingly loved by most of them because they knew what they had to do to make the fans happy. It's just crazy to me that like these other companies are, I don't know, man. Maybe it's just these writers. Do you think that Bran is intended to be the Lord of Light? No, I do not. Yeah, if you guys could like the stream, thank you so much, Brian, for reminding me. I'm so bad at that. If you guys could like the stream, that would be dope. This is the beginning of many conversations I think we'll have about Dan and Dave doing Star Wars, what it means. You know, we'll look back on Thrones quite a bit. At the very least, it's interesting, right? And a lot of what we do here and what we talk about here, it's at least interesting. It's kind of crazy the way this all goes down, the way fans react. I mean, who would have thought, right? The last season of Game of Thrones, fans hate it. The way it was wrapped up, fans hate it. They got signed on to do Star Wars before it came out. Same thing with Ryan, right? Let's give this guy a trilogy before we see how the fan base responds. Hey, look, Game of Thrones fans love these guys. It's the most popular show of all time. Give them a trilogy. Oh, wait. I mean, dude, Kathy is just. I don't think she's making bad moves. I mean, she is making bad moves, but I think she's getting pretty unlucky in a lot of ways, too. Yo, Legion is incredible. Yeah, 2 water bottles found in this last episode. How pathetic is that? I mean, look, I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt with the Starbucks thing. I was like, guys, it's a massive show. They just missed it. The edits missed it. Or maybe they uploaded the wrong file when they did the finalized version of that timeline for that render. So many things that could happen. But after that happens, how do you not have people scrubbing through every single frame of the rest of your shows? How does that not happen? It just shows like it's just kind of disrespectful, you know? And you guys know me. I'm usually Mr. Positive. I really try to keep it positive. You know what I mean? It's just this is a hard one for me to keep positive about. Oh, Nafi FB6. Any chance you'll do a video about how much Bran actually knew about what was going to happen in King's Landing and how much he didn't say anything? Perhaps. I mean, I'll have to wait and see. I gotta be honest. I don't think so. But I can answer your question right now. It is interesting to think about how much Bran knew, and if he really did know that this was the way it was all going to go down. It really feels uncharacteristic because he seems to realize that he can't be normal in a lot of different ways because of his abilities. And so that's the thing. It doesn't make sense for him to say suddenly that, oh no, I actually think I got a handle on this, me being king. It's a good idea. That just doesn't make any sense. How much does he see and how much does he know? I think it's just like everything. And he's getting better and better at processing it. So, pardon me. I really don't know how to answer that. Yeah, was Jon's purpose for being resurrected to kill Dany, the Princess Promise, blah, blah, blah. Dude, there's no reason for him to be resurrected. There's no reason. He's resurrected because Melisandre believes that he has a role to play. And I mean, technically he did, right? He played a big role in getting all those armies together and helping defeat the dead. Dany did too. Lest we forget, without Daenerys Stormborn, the whole world would have ended. It's too bad she snapped, but she definitely deserves credit for saving humanity. You know? How do I think George will end the series? Same way. Same way. All right, guys, I'm going to do like 2 more questions, then I'm going to get out of here. And thank you so very much for hanging because the notifications were weird on this. I think I just did the stream way too soon to that other video. 2 more questions. Hit me with your best shot. Guys, I do want to read you something too. This is coming from executive producer Al Schuler. He just sent me this. He said, I will just say this about Game of Thrones. That finale made me glad I didn't invest 8 seasons. Dang. Is D&D work right for Star Wars after Episode 9? WIP, work in progress, D&D. Wait, what? I'm not sure what you mean there. Oh, will. Yeah, I think they'll still do really well. I think they probably always knew that the ending of Game of Thrones was going to be dissatisfying. I think that that's something that George knew. I think that's something they knew. I think they were like, you know, it's gonna not be that great. People are not gonna like it. But it almost feels right for that show, right? Star Wars, it's like kind of different. Like people want to compare like what Ryan did and some of the switches and the changes. I don't know. It's hard to say. I think they are brilliant. I think I cannot wait to see what they do with Star Wars. I am a little less excited about it this morning and today than I was before, but I'm excited to hear them start to talk about it. And I think that at the end of the day, George is not going to be involved. You know what I mean? Like we're not going to spend the whole trilogy falling in love with somebody that just then goes insane. Or maybe we will. But I'm just saying that's not that type of story, right? Star Wars has got to be hopeful. What will be the next big show for HBO? I mean, dude, they're spending money. That His Dark Materials looks like it could be their big show. Watchmen might be their next big show. The prequel series might be their next big show. Westworld comes out, I believe, next year as well. Maybe not. Yeah, I think it comes out next year. So, yeah, they've got plenty of firepower. Do you think that Bran could be the true villain when you look back at it all? Definitely. And I would love to see a point of view chapter from Bran's perspective at the very end of the book where he's like, I got you. I got you all. They're trying to make Watchmen a thing. They really are. Yeah, Martin will be the writer in the prequel, so I guess it'll be heartbreaking. You know? They also sewed shut Deadpool's lips. I mean, yeah, I think that was Dan. It was one of them. It wasn't both of them. And also, there's a lot of writers on Wolverine Origins. And that's just a Hollywood thing, man. I mean, for God's sakes, the two guys that wrote Endgame and Infinity War wrote Transformers movies, guys. You know what I'm saying? Transformers movies. Are we gonna start? Are we? You know what I mean? Are we gonna start saying that because you had some misses you can't hit? Let's see here. Yeah, let's see here. Let's see what they wrote. Pain and Gain. Chronicle? No, they wrote Chronicles of Narnia. At least Christopher Marcus did. Yeah, yeah. Phoenix Taylor coming in hot with the super chat. Love you, but you're wrong. Great ending, great series. Y'all projecting way too much on the show. It's played out. It's not your own personal fan fiction. Look, in a lot of ways, Phoenix, I agree with you. I've took that stance for most of the season. Most of the things that happen even in this episode, I'm personally okay with. But the simple fact of the matter is, Bran as king makes no sense, dude. And them doing Bran as king with no foreshadowing and putting the things that they did in there is just unexcusable to me, man. Like, that is my opinion. You're right. That is my opinion. And it's not my personal fan fiction, but I just think that's a move, particularly with the way that it was executed on the show, that is only done because you don't think that'll happen, and that's stupid. That's a stupid metric for what you should put on screen. But I feel you, dog. I'm not trying to take anybody's excitement away from it. But by the way, if you liked that ending and you like this season, you're in the minority. There's no way around it. You're in the minority. Yeah. That would be cool. Kaiser Sose. A lot of people are mad about the pacing. I think it's a perfectly good argument to say that this was rushed and that it lost a lot of its value because it was rushed. I can definitely get down with that. But, dude, I'm sorry. King Bran is just the worst. You know what, Darth Wacko? That's a really good point. So it's like, do you think that George set up D&D by not finishing the books before the show so he can buy his books and see his side of the story? I mean, those book sales are going to be crazy because people really want to know now. I even want to know. I've only read like certain POV chapters just to fill in like things that I'm curious about. I actually don't really like George's prose, to be honest with you. But yeah, like that could be. Like I said, George might have just known that his ending sucks, and he just wanted to get all that show money. Maybe. Yeah, they didn't do anything with it, Maria. Super disappointing. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. You guys are amazing. And for those of you that like the show, I'm glad that you like the show, honestly. And I'm glad that you like the finale. There's parts of it that I really like. I almost like how much I hate it, if that makes sense. I want to watch it again, but I might turn it off as soon as that Bran is King stuff happens. I'm not even kidding. I'll probably turn it off. But a lot of the other stuff I really liked. So that's going to do it for this episode. Guys, a lot of fan chat lives coming at you soon. Oh, no, Ken. Oh, no, Ken. We're just ending. That's all right. You can catch it on the replay. All right, guys. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day. And I'll see you in the next video.